All right, good evening. We are on Daf Chof Zayin, Amud Aleph. We are 17 lines from the top. I brought my trusty art scroll Gemara today because you got to have the right tools for the right sugya. As we will get to the second half of today's daf, or tomorrow's daf, however it is, there are difficult words. And instead of annoying everybody, I'm gonna look over. I'm gonna cheat. It's fine. It's okay. I'm not too proud to say. I don't know how to say all the names of the various vegetables. It's the vegetables that get you. The vegetables. It's not the nikudos. It's not the nikudos. It's the translations of something. You'll see. Yeah. Itmar. Let's get work here on today's daf. Itmar. As we said, how we had stated yesterday that a non-Jew cannot perform a bris milah according to some opinions. So how do we know that? So Daru bar Papa mishmei Rav Amar. Daru bar Papa said in the name of Rav, "Ve'ato as brisi tishmor." Right, and you, my covenant, you shall keep. This was said to Avram Avinu, indicating that Avram Avinu and his offspring have the responsibility of doing a bris milah. And if you are not an offspring of Avram Avinu, you are not Jewish, you are not able to perform a bris milah. For Rabbi Yochanan says himol yimol, which he says to pronounce it hamol yimol, right? Hamol yimol, the one who is circumcised, he is the one who can do a circumcision. That's how you're going to reread that translation. Hamol yimol. My beinaihu, what difference does it make whether you learn it from one source versus the other? So aravi mohul, v'gavnuni mahol ikabeinaihu. What if you've got an Arab who is circumcised or a gavnuni who has circumcised? These are people who are not Jewish. They are not part of the covenant of Avraham. And therefore, if you follow Daru bar Papa's explanation that he said in the name of Rav, they would be not allowed to do it because they're not commanded to. However, if you are looking at the explanation of Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Yochanan says, as long as they have a bris milah, they can do a bris milah. These guys have a bris milah. Man damar hamol yimol ikka, the one who learns it from the verse that says hamol yimol, so they have a bris.
If they have a bris, does that mean they have a covenant with Hashem, even though they're not Jewish?
No, they just have a bris physically. Right? There's no covenant about it, but they've got a bris milah. So therefore, they would be able to do it. Man damar es brisi tishmor, the one who says that you've got to learn it from brisi tishmor, leka, they cannot because they are not the offspring of Avraham Avinu. Okay? So, right. Okay. Now, Ulaman damar hamol yimol, according to the opinion that says hamol yimol ika, are you going to tell me that according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're going to give these folks the ability to give a bris milah simply because they have one, as Yehuda says? It's not really a circumcision. Ultimately, it's a circumcision, but it's not a bris milah, right? Because there's no connection to Hashem on it. That's none. If we learned in a Mishnah, the Mishnah says, "Konim shani nene min ha'arelim." If somebody says, "I take a vow," as we had learned what the konim vow is, that I'm going to prohibit some item from me getting benefit as though it was like a korban. So he says, I have a konem from, I'm going to get any benefit, min ha'arelim. And arel is somebody who is not circumcised. So he says, I'm not going to get any benefit from the uncircumcised. Mutter be'arele Yisrael. So even though that's what he said, what he meant was that I won't use any non-Jews, right? Therefore, if you find a Jew who is non-circumcised, he can still get benefit from that fellow because that's not who he intended to include. And if somebody had a circumcision who was not Jewish, that wouldn't count. So what do we see? We see that just because you've had the physical act of a circumcision doesn't make it a bris milah. Because if somebody were to take an oath and say, I'm going to swear that I'm not going to get benefit from all of the arelim, all of the uncircumcised, it applies to non-Jews who are all considered, whether they've had a bris milah or not, they're all considered arelim. And the Jews, whether they've had a circumcision or not, are called mahol.
Could one of the reasons why they got it cut because that's one of the things that infected in your body?
No, it's probably because the Arabs have a belief that they are followers of Yishmael, and Yishmael got a bris milah when he was 13, and so they continue that practice to this day, right? They are going to continue as tradition, as part of their religious experience, that they will continue to do it, right? It's not necessarily because that's what they want to do because of infection, or necessarily, I mean, it could be because of that too, but for whatever reason, it's not because they're Jewish. That's the point. Alma, so this Mishnah, which is talking about this vow, is telling us Afal Gav de Mehili Kimandalo Mehili Damu, that even though they may have a bris milah, they're not considered people who have a bris milah. Does that make sense? Okay. Ella, so that's not going to be the distinction between them. They're going to, for sure, you're not going to be, even according to the opinion that it says Hamol Yimol, you're still not going to be allowed to do a bris milah from somebody who isn't Jewish.
Right? What does that mean?
Hamol Yimol, the one who is circumcised, he should give a circumcision. Ella, so rather, you know what the difference is? Ika beinahu Yisrael shemesu echov achiv machmas mila velo maluhu. We're talking about a person who has had brothers who have died from circumcision. So the rule is that if somebody's brothers have died from circumcision, we're worried that there's some kind of genetic issue that's problematic, and after a couple of tries, so we no longer give any of the other brothers in the family a bris milah.
How would that work as a Jew?
So as a Jew, you're still Jewish. You're just not going to be able to eat the korban Pesach, presumably, and you're not somebody who has a bris milah, right? You just don't have bris milah. Mm-hmm. So in this circumstance, so if this person is, but the question is, can this person give a bris milah to another Jew? Can he be a Moel?
Even if he's not circumcised.
Correct. Because Lamanda Amar Va'ata is Brisi Tishmor, according to the opinion that says you have to keep my covenant because you're a descendant of Abraham Ika. So then these are Jews. There's no reason they can't give a bris milah to somebody just because they don't have one. Lamanda Amar Hamol Yimol, the one who says that one who is circumcised can give a circumcision, Leka, they wouldn't be allowed to because they don't themselves have a circumcision. They couldn't give it to somebody else. Well, that's still problematic. Ulamanda Amar Hamol Yimol Leka, you're going to tell me that according to the opinion that says Hamol Yimol, they're not allowed to give a circumcision. Vatnan. Look at the Mishnah again. The Mishnah says, Konim sha'ani nemi mulim. If a person says, I am going to take an oath that I'm not going to get any benefit from somebody who has had a bris, Aser be'arele Yisrael, he's going to be prohibited from getting any benefit from even people who are uncircumcised, who are Jews, because those who are circumcised is a category of Jews. It's not a distinguishing characteristic between some Jews and other Jews. So therefore, this fellow, even though he is uncircumcised, is not considered somebody who is not circumcised. He's amongst the group. But Yisrael umuter b'mulei of the kohanim, but he'd be permitted, right, to get benefit from somebody who is an idolater, even if that person was circumcised.
I'll say no.
Well, but the Mishnah says yes. So you'll adjust. So Alma, that is to say, Afal Gav Delo Mehili, Command Mehili Damu. That means that a Jew who himself is not circumcised, he's under the category of somebody who is, even though he's not. Therefore, even the opinion that would say that you have to be circumcised in order to give a circumcision would allow these Jews who are not circumcised to still give a circumcision. So that's not going to be the difference between the two of them. Ella, so rather, you know what the difference is? Ikabeinahu Isha, a woman. That's the difference. Lemanda Amar V'ata es Brisi Tishmor, according to the opinion that says, you are the children of Abraham, so you're going to have to guard my bris. So then Leka, then that is, she's not counted, right? She's not involved, right? That's not going to be considered because she's not involved in that mitzvah. She's never involved in this bris. Deisha lav bas milahi. She has no obligation of the mitzvah of doing a bris milah, so therefore she's out. She can't give a bris milah. Uleman damar hamol yimol, according to the one who learns it from the pasuk that says hamol yimol. So Ika, then it would be okay with a woman. Why? Deish command mehila damya. Because you're either somebody who is uncircumcised or you're somebody who's circumcised. You cannot categorize a woman as somebody who's uncircumcised. Therefore, she's under the category of mohol. Therefore, she could give a bris milah. She, woman, bring up a bris milah, a moheles.
I've never heard of that before.
Neither have I. If you are reform or you're conservative, you may, right? It is apparently not. I Googled it and found that yes, indeed, there are some ladies, doctors, who are giving bris milahs, and it is uncommon and not practiced in Orthodox circles. Although lahalacha, we would paskin that a woman could b'diavad, as we'll see. Now, umi ika lamandamar isha lo. Is there anybody who would hold that a woman couldn't give a bris milah? V'haksiv, but we have a famous story, right? Famous story with Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't give his sons a bris. And Moshe Rabbeinu was going back to Mitzrayim.
Do you know the reason why he never gave his son a bris? Because you think the fact he had such a close covenant with Hashem, you think that he would give his son a bris, whether they're in the desert or not.
There was a traveling issue, and he was worried that it wasn't going to be safe, and so therefore he hadn't. But Tzipora, but a Malach HaMavis comes and attacks Moshe Rabbeinu. Vatikach Tzipora tsar. So Tzipora took a sharp stone, and she gives a bris milah. So therefore, Tzipora could give a bris milah. Seems women can give a bris milah.
Those are only for a certain circumstance.
So, but if it's not a bris milah, it's not a bris milah, right? I mean, it's very nice that you're right. She's saving his life, but if she didn't do anything, it didn't help, right? It's got to be a bris milah. So, kari be vatakach. You change the vowelization. Make it, and she caused it to be taken. Meaning, there was some other Jewish person who was traveling with them, and she got him to do it. That's what Tzipora did. So that it wasn't her who did it at all. Vaksiv vatichros. Then it says, but it says that she cut, right? And so she did it. Karibe vatachros. Got tachres. You should read it vatachres. And she caused somebody else to cut, right? She got a boel. De amrli inish achrina. She told another guy, please do this for me because we've got to. Ve'avad, and he did it. So therefore, according to the opinion, it says a woman couldn't do it. That's the solution to that problem. V'boy, somewhere else, if you want, I will say, Asya ihi ve'aschala. She started the bris milah. Ve'asa Moshe ve'agmara. But she couldn't finish it because she's a lady. But once she started it, the Malach HaMavis left Moshe Rabbeinu alone. And then Moshe Rabbeinu was able to complete the bris and complete the mitzvah. And that's how they took care of it. That's explanation number 2. According to that opinion that says that a woman couldn't do it. Okay, next Mishnah. Misrapid mehen ripui mamon. We're allowed to go to a non-Jewish doctor and get a healing that is money. Aval lo ripui nefashos, but not a healing that is of the body of the person.
What is healing that of money?
I was hoping that you'd ask that because the Gemara will as well. But I wanted to be able to read it appropriately cryptically, so that when you got to the point of to the part of the Gemara, you would say, "Oh, that's what it means." Okay, I didn't want to give it away. Vein is mistaprin mehen bechom makom, and you can't get haircuts from them, right? We said that yesterday. Somebody had said that, right? Can't get any haircuts from them at all. Diver Rabbi Meir, that makes sense. It's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Meir's always worried that the non-Jews are going to secretly kill you. V'chachamim the chum say b'rishus harabim mutter. If you're doing it publicly, it's okay. Avalo beino lebeino, but not if you are just by yourself with the guy, right? That will admit that you're in a dangerous circumstance in that circumstance.
Right.
Says the Gemara, my ripui mamon, my ripui nefashos. What is this business about healing of the money and healing of the soul, of the body? So ripui mamon bischar, maybe it means, ripui money means that you pay. Right? If you go to the doctor and you pay the bill, or OHIP does, so then that counts. That's going to be, you're allowed to do that. Ripui nefashos bechinam, but he's just healing your body, that would mean he's doing it for free, and that would not be allowed. So then why would you say that? Because why would the Mishnah write it in these cryptic terms? Leisne misrap mehem beschar. Why doesn't the Mishnah just write simply in Hebrew, right? Heal them for pay, aval lo bechinam, but not for free. It's a very strange language. Ella, so that's not the explanation. Rather, it means ripui mamon. Monetary means davar she'ein bo sakana. He's healing you from something that is not dangerous, right? You've got a achy elbow, right? He's healing you from something like that. That you can go to him.
Or a dislocated shoulder.
Or dislocated shoulder, good example. Ripui nefashos davar. Ripui nefashos is davar sheyesh bo sakana. Healing your body means that it is something that is dangerous, right?
Cancer,
you're going to,
for example.
Cancer, heart disease, right? Only any of these kinds of things that if you don't get it taken care of, you could die. That's what you shouldn't go to a non-Jew for, because the presumption is he's not going to treat you well. And then when you die, he has the greatest cover, right? He came to me with a terminal illness. What could I do, right? V'amar Rav Yehuda, but didn't Rav Yehuda say, afilu rivda dekosilta lo matzinon minaihu. He says that you're not even allowed to have him puncture you with the bloodletter's needle. Can't even use that because that's still dangerous. He could wind up killing you with that, right? He's got the excuse. And so Rabbi Yehuda says, avoid that as well. So if Rabbi Yehuda says that you avoid that, for sure you're supposed to avoid even getting your tennis elbow treated by him. So Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Mar Ukva, right? So Rav Chisda says the name of Mar Ukva. Avalim Amar lo sam ploni yafelo, sam ploni ralo, mutter. If you ask, did I skip? Ella ripoi mamon, sorry, I skipped. Ella ripoi mamon behemto, his healing of money means that he heals your money, your property. You go to the vet. Going to the vet, that's okay. You could take your animal to the vet. However, ripoi nefashos gufei, but having the non-Jew take care of you altogether, that you avoid. V'hainu da'amar Rav Yehuda, that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Afilu rivda de kosilta lo matzina minaihu. That's why I skipped it, because it was that same thing, right? That's what Rabbi Yehuda says, that even the bloodletter's lance, right, the bloodletter's needle, you're not allowed to have him do it to you because there's a presumption that he could do something nefarious to you. Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Mar Ukva. Rav Chisda says the name of Mar Ukva, aval. However, im Amar lo samploni yafa lo samploni ralo mutter. If, however, all the non-Jews tells you is, I'm going to write you a prescription, right? So that's okay, right? He says, I'll go. Savar, because why? Chav zayin on the base. Savar shiyuli mashulo kihechi de mashulo mashlina shachrina. So he figures that the guy is just asking him for advice. Back then, they didn't charge, right, for the consult. So if he asks me, what's the right medicine to take for this? So not only is he going to ask me, he's going to ask a second opinion. And if I give him a poisonous medication, something that's not the right, he's just going to think I'm a dope. It's going to be bad for my reputation. So therefore, I won't lie, knowing that he's going to seek a second opinion anyway. V'asahu gavra l'urei nafshe.
This is primary, or is this in front of people?
This seems to be regardless, right? That we're going to say that this is regardless, that when we said that you can go ask for you can ask a doctor, right? It seems like you can ask a doctor for a prescription for medicine, because then somebody will be able to say, hey, does this make sense? Right? You go to the pharmacist. Does this make sense for my, should I be taking this cyanide for my tennis elbow? Does that make sense? Right? And he's going to say, actually, that's not the right medicine. Then you'll go, oh, well, this guy is really trying to kill me and ruin his reputation. Right. So that is why he wouldn't. Amar Rav, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rav said in Rabbi Yochanan, Amri La, and some said it was Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. There was Rav Chisda said in Rabbi Yochanan, Safek Chai, Safek Mace. Right? If you are in a situation where your condition, you don't know what the prognosis is. The guy may live, he may die. Ein misra ben mehen. Then don't go to a non-Jew for the healing because he may help it along. Vadai mace, but if you know you're going to die if you're not treated, misra ben mehen, you've got nothing to lose. Right? May as well go to the non-Jew and see. Mace, well, 1 second, just because you're going to die, ha'ika chayisha, you still have a few hours to live. He could make it worse. And he can kill you immediately. So the chaysha lo chayshinon. The answer is, as far as that's concerned, you may as well take the practice. Take your chances, roll the dice, because we're not really worried about if you're just going to live for a little bit longer. You may as well, because what you're risking here, you're risking a little bit of time for the potential of getting healed altogether. So therefore, we'll risk it. How do we know that under such a circumstance, we're not going to worry about the potential that you're giving up a moment of life in exchange for the potential of getting healed? Dirsiv, the pasuk says, Im amarnu navo ha'ir v'harav be'ir v'amasnu sham. Okay, so there were these lepers that were outside of the city, and everybody was starving inside the city, right? And so they were being sieged. They were being under siege, and these lepers were outside the city, and Hashem makes a nace overnight and kills all the people, and they all run away, all the marauding army. And so these people said, fine, we're all starving. Here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go to the enemy, and we're going to surrender. And we'll be asked to feed us. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They'll kill us? Okay, so they'll kill us, but we're going to die anyway of starvation. There we see, right, that's the point that they were going to say, we may as well give up the fact that they would have lived for a few more hours. They were willing to give that up in order for the potential that they might have gotten fed. Of course, they discovered that there was lots of food, and then they went and told everybody in the city to come on out. There's lots of food. And that story ends happily. How were they able to give themselves over and surrender to the enemy? They could have been killed, and weren't they going to live for a little bit longer? So you see from here that when it comes to a circumstance where you're facing death, you can risk the last remaining moments that you have in order to potentially get saved more permanently. Meisvei, so ask the question. Lo yisav yitain adam im haminin. You're not allowed to do business together with minin. Minin are the people who are idol worshippers who try to convince others to worship idols as well. The ain misra, therefore we don't have any connection to them because they're always trying to tell you about their Lord and Savior and knock on your door and have you ever tried my religion and things like that. That's these guys, and you don't want to hang around with them. You don't want to do business with them. Don't get in a conversation with them. Vein misrap in mehen, and you don't go to use them as a doctor. Afilu l'chayisha, even if all you're going to live for a little bit longer. Ma'isa ben dama ben achos shur b'yishmal. There was a story, right? That for them. So in other words, that's what we were talking before about idol worshippers. These guys are way worse. Right? These guys are going to, because if they heal somebody, they're going to go talk about it. They're trying to establish relationships. They're going to convert people to their idols and things that we don't want to have anything to do with them, even if you're risking your small amount of life for longer term gain. So the story was that with the story of Ben Dama ben Achos Shur Yishmael. So Ben Dama, who was the son of Rabbi Yishmael's sister, so it was his nephew, right? Rabbi Yishmael's nephew, Ben Dama, Shekichu Nachash. He got bitten by a snake. Uba Yaakov ish kfar Sachanya l'raposo. And there was a fellow who was a min. His name was Yaakov. He was a man from the village of Sachanya, and he came to be the doctor. Velo hinichu Rabbi Yishmael. And Rabbi Yishmael said, "You can't work on him. Too bad."
What's the reason you can't work on him?
Because he is a min. Yeah, he's a min, and we don't want to have any relationship with them.
So a min is a Jew?
A min is I believe that they are Jews. If I'm understanding,
like Yaakov,
right? You'd imagine
Yaakov,
right?
Jewish.
It sounds right. I believe that they were Jews who were trying to convert other Jews, and right. So they're bad news.
So they're basically Jews who are corrupt, basically.
Yes. Let's see if he said what he says here. Minin are. He says min is one who worships idols obsessively. Right, that's what he said. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's Jewish, I suppose. Right. So it doesn't have to be.
Right, okay.
V'amalei Rabbi Yishmael, achi hanachlo ve'erpeh mimenu. So he said, "Hey, Rabbi Yishmael, my brother," meaning his uncle, right? Leave him alone. He'll heal me. I'm going to die. V'ani avei mikra min Torah shu mutter. I'll prove you a pasuk that says it's permissible for him to do it. Below he speak ligmoras hadavar, he wasn't able to finish the sentence until he died. So his uncle stopped him from getting treated, and he died. Kara love Rabbi Yishmael. So Rabbi Yishmael said about him, Ashrecha ben Dama, you are praised ben Dama, shaguf choy tahor, your body was pure. V'yatzas nishmascha b'tahara, and your last word was mutter, was permitted, so your body, your soul left with purity. Right? So therefore you see, v'lo avart al divrei chaverecha, and you didn't transgress the rabbinic enactment of getting treated by the minim. Well, we didn't do that. Shayu omrim, because the pasuk says, they say about violating rabbinic prohibitions, uporetz geder yishkenu nachash. Somebody who breaks through a fence will get bitten by a snake. Now, so Shani, so we say, okay, so we just said that you're allowed to be treated by a non-Jewish doctor. Now we're not treating him, or by this idolatrous doctor. So the answer is, as we've been saying, Shani minus demashcha v'asi lemimshach basraihu. You're by a min, it's different because they'll keep going at you and telling you and try to drag you in, and so we don't want you to get involved with this. Okay, now Amar Mar. Let's go back over what happened here. Lo avart al divrei chaveirecha, right? He said it's your praise, it's good because you didn't violate what your peers had said, right? They said not to get treated by this min doctor, and you didn't violate that. Shayu omrim poritz geder yishkenu nachash, because they said that you break through the fence, a snake will bite you. So inami chavya tarke. So he says, what did he die from? He died from a snake bite. How could it have gotten any worse? That's right. Good question. right? The irony. Don't violate the rabbinic pronouncement. You'll get bitten by a snake, whereas he died by being bitten by a snake. So the answer is Chavya derabanan deleisle asusa klal. So the answer is the snake of the rabbanan. There's no healing from that at all, and I suppose that's a spiritual healing, right?
What is the snake for the? What is the snake for the rabbanan? What is that? What type of snake is that?
I don't know if it's a specific type of snake. Rashi says, if a snake bites you because you violated the words of the Chacham, lo ta'ala, lo refuah, v'yamos, you're not going to have, there's no healing from it, you will surely die. Right? Even if they would have been able to heal him from this snake bite, he would have gotten bitten by another snake that he would not have been able to heal, right? Overall, different because he'd be chayav misa for that. In which case, he would have benefited nothing, and he would have done the avera. So, just leave it as is. Okay. Now, he was about to say a pasuk that could have made it permissible. So, what was he going to say? The pasuk says that you shall live in them. You're supposed to follow the mitzvos, and you're going to live. And if you're in a situation of pikuach nefesh, so that you could transgress other mitzvos in order to save your life. So, seems as he was trying to tell him, I have the overriding pikuach nefesh here, I'm permitted. Rabbi Shmuel disagreed. He said, Hani mili bitzina. That's if it would have been in private, ava befarhesia lo, but not if it's in public. Titania, as we learned in a brisa. Haya Rabbi Shmuel would say, Minayin she'im omrim lo la'adam avodah kachavim v'al tareg she'avod v'al yareg. How do we know that if somebody says you should worship idols and I'll kill you if you don't worship idols? How do we know that you're supposed to worship the idol and not die?
Actually, no. Isn't that supposed to? Isn't it supposed to? Aren't you supposed to die if you're being threatened to either worship the idol or die? You're
supposed to
kill
die.
yourself if you die.
Right. Tosfos that says Yochel afil befarhesia tamid lo l'schashem says Umiu Rabbanan pligi de Rabbi Shmuel. The Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Shmuel. That's the Tosfos says, and they say in Parak Ben Sora Mora. We learned in Parak Ben Sora Mora in Sanhedrin already that Yehuda remembers the Amri befarhesia afilu mitzvah kala, that if it's in public, every mitzvah you're supposed to die for. Otherwise, in private, you're supposed to die for the big three, right?
With the Zara,
Gilui Arayos and Shvichas Damim, right? Those are our three. Mm-hmm. So you are correct. Rabbi Yishmael is of a different opinion. Rabbi Yishmael says, I can worship Avodah Zara and not die. Even that one. But, because it says, you might have thought I'm supposed to die, back into the Gemara, Tamad Lomar v'chai b'hem, v'lo she'amus b'hem, I'm supposed to live with them, I'm not supposed to die. Yachal filu b'farhesia. Now, you might think that that's even in public, Tamad Lomar, v'lo techalu Hashem kadshi, you can't make a chil Hashem. Chil Hashem is the overriding factor, can't do it in public, and that's why he wouldn't allow his nephew to do it. Amar Rabbi Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Bar Chana said in Rabbi Yochanan, Kol makash mechal and Allah es Shabbos, ein misrapin mehen. The good rule of thumb is that if you've got a illness that you're able to be mechal Shabbos in order to be saved, got to be severe enough. Now we have
like diabetes, you have to monitor.
So the rule is that Torah prohibitions. Obviously, if it's a life and death situation, you can violate any prohibition in order to be saved. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, right, you have a rabbinic prohibition against doing any medical practice. You can't take any medicines, you can't do any medical procedures, lest you will grind the medications and make more medications. So all medical procedures are rabbinically prohibited. So when is a medical procedure, this is the halacha, and we'll see it come out in the Gemara, when is a medical procedure permitted on Shabbos? When you are so sick that you are unable to function, you become bedridden, or it becomes potentially dangerous under those circumstances. Mm-hmm. So then you can. Now, the Gemara is talking about mechalin olah Shabbos, is actually being mechalel Shabbos, right?
Some people who have diabetes have something, and there's a monitor at home.
So diabetes is a life-threatening circumstance, it's a condition, right? Yeah. So you have to be able to take that, right? But this is anything that is you're going to be mechal Shabbos for it. So then you're not allowed to let a non-Jew do it, because then it's life-threatening. We said you're not allowed to have a non-Jew work on you if it's life-threatening. Vikadamri, and those who say I'm a Rabbi Bar Chana, Rabbi Bar Chana said I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Kol makashel chalal ein merapeh mehen. Where Chav Chesed Aleph, he says that anything that's an internal illness, right? so then you can't go to a non-Jew because you can't see the treatment, right? You can't see what it is that they're doing. If it's an internal treatment, can't go to them. My beinaihu, what is the practical difference? What's the circumstances between the two? Ika beinaihu gav hayad v'gav haregel. Let's say you have a injury that's on the back of the hand or the back of the foot. Damar Rav Adar bar Masna, Amar Rav Adar bar Masna said in Rav, gav hayad v'gav haregel. If you've got a wound on the back of the hand or the back of the foot, harezat b'makal shel chalal. This is the same thing as an internal injury. It's dangerous. It's got to be taken care of. Umechalal and Shabbos, and you can be mechalal Shabbos for it. However, according to the opinion that says, right, that it is that's external, right? So ultimately, it would be permitted because you can see what he's doing. So therefore, you say mechalal Shabbos for it, right? So this is the issue: is it you're able to be mechalal Shabbos for it because it's like an internal injury, but it's not an internal injury. Amar Rav Zutra Bar Tuvia Amar Rav. So Rav Zutra says in Rav, Kol Maka Shetzricha Omeid Mechal Nesa Shabbos. So he says, if you've got any type of a illness that requires somebody to make an assessment, if you're going to live or die, right? They've got to do a triage and be able to evaluate. So then you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos, right? You're not sure whether he's going to die. Go ahead and be Mechal Shabbos, right? Better call it Salah. See what's going on. Amar Rav Shimon bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Shimon bar Abba says to Rav Yochanan, Hai ishtasa tzemirta b'maka shel chalal dami. So this is where my English starts to come. You see, this is what's going on here, right? A burning fever. Ishtasa tzemirta.
140, 180?
102. Since you ask, Rav Moshe Feinstein Paskins, a burning fever is 102 degrees. So that's where you are able, that's where you start to become bedridden and in danger, and that's where you could wind up taking medicine for it, right? Oh. So if you are below that fever amount, 102, so then if you know that it's an infection or something else, then you have to take care of that too, right? This is only if the only symptom that you have is fever. A low fever is not going to be enough, but if you've got a 102 burning fever, right, that is kemaka shechaldim, it's like you have an internal injury. Shabbos, you can be mechalal Shabbos for it.
That's when you call Hatzalah or...
Yeah, you could, right? Or, and certainly you can take a Tylenol for it or something like that, bring the fever down. Because that's only Durabanan. Now, Mehechan Maka Shel Chalal. So he says, from where is internal? We said that any internal, right? If you've got a scratch on your hand and your face, that's not internal. You don't have to Mechal Shabbos for it. But where's an internal wound? What's the difference?
Like a broken rib, for example.
Well, but where does it start? A rib is for sure internal, right? Yeah. Where's internal? So Perish Rav Ami min asafa v'lifnim, from the lips inward, everything inside your mouth and everything like that. Now we're going to try to figure out where the boundary for that is. Boy, Rabbi Eliezer says, Kachi v'shini mai. What about your teeth and gums? Right? If you have a wound on teeth and gums, is that an internal injury? And you've got to be concerned and Mechal Shabbos for it. Kevan da kushe ninhu kemaka debroi damu says since they're hard, right? They're bone, they're hard, they're not soft tissue that's being infected here. So they're like outside wounds. Odilma kevan da gavai kaimi, they are inside your mouth. To be considered like an internal wound, and you've got to be Mechal Shabbos. Kemaka shechol damu. So Amar Rabbi, says Toshman, come and listen. Hachoshesh b'shino. If somebody's got some kind of pain in his teeth, lo yigma behenas achometz, he cannot swallow vinegar. They would have vinegar as a remedy, as a medicine for the toothache. And the taking vinegar for a toothache is a prohibition of taking medicine, doing a practice that's medicinal purposes. Even though you could use vinegar on your salad. Right, but if you drink it as medicine, that would be a prohibition because of the prohibition of taking medicine. Chosheshu delo. So chosheshu delo. That is if he's got an ache, right? So that is he's not allowed to violate the vinegar. He's not allowed to violate the rabbinic prohibition, right? So, but ha koyiv letuva shapir. But if it was really hurting him a lot, so then that would be okay. Then it would be fine. Shapir. So Dilma, no, maybe Tana Heicha Dekoyev Letuva Choshish Nami Karle. Maybe when the Tana used the word Choshish, he's got a toothache, it means really hurting him. And it's telling us that even though it's really hurting him, he still can't take the vinegar, still can't be Mechal, it's still considered to be an external injury, doesn't prove anything. Toshma, come and listen. Rabbi Yochanan Chosh B'Tzafdina. So Rabbi Yochanan was, he suffered from what Art School translates as Tzafdina, right, which is a tooth ailment of some kind, right? That the note says on the bottom that it's thrush, but thrush is not really a tooth ailment, so we'll not translate it as thrush. But he had safdina. Matronisa. He went to a certain noblewoman who knew how to make cures. Of the chamsha umale shabsa. So she made this medicine for him to take on Thursday. She made it again for him on Friday. Amar le. So he said to her, Amar la. Lamachar mai, what am I supposed to do tomorrow? Can't come here on when it's not Shabbos and you can't make it for me. So Amra le, so she said to him, Lo tzrichas, you're not going to need it. Don't worry, you're going to be healed by tomorrow. So he says, Yitrichna mai, what if I do? Right? What am I supposed to do? Amra, so she said, Ishtaba li delo maglis, I'll tell you the recipe, but you have to swear to me that you're not going to tell anybody because that's my livelihood. So Ishtaba la, so he swore to her, Le'aloha di Yisrael, right, to the God of Israel, right? Lo magilna galyeah will not reveal it. Lemachar, nafak drosha bepirka. The next day he went to the base medrash and he told everybody that what the remedy was. Now, the v'ha ishtaba le'Allah Yisrael, but he swore not to do it. How did he do that? So the answer is lo miglina aval le'amei Yisrael maglina. His oath was, I will not tell it to the God of Israel. Right? To the God of Israel, I will not tell it. That's what he said. So therefore, he didn't tell it to the God of Israel. He told the Jewish people.
Right. So tzavtzina refers to stomatitis. That's what it stands for.
All right. So if anybody knows what that is, that's good. That's good. If there are any dentists watching, Ve'ha'ika chil Hashem. But 1 second, there's a chil Hashem. He tricked her. Right at the end of the day, Degali la meikara. He told her right away. He didn't trick her. Right? He didn't say, I'm going to go, he said, as soon as she told him, he said, okay, now that you've told me, I want you to know, tomorrow I'm going to tell the secret out. The Gemara in the Yerushalmi tells the story and has two different endings. One is she killed herself. She was very upset that she lost her secret remedy. But another explanation is that she converted to Judaism. And she was very impressed with the idea. She didn't want that her secret should be Rabbi Yochanan had the opportunity to take this medicine and to make a lot of money off of it, and he gave it away for free, showing how much he cared about other people. He was how much caring he was about other people. So either it was a good ending or a bad ending. Hopefully it was the second one. It's a nicer story if she was impressed. But the bottom line of it is the question is, what right does she have to keep something secret that's going to save many lives? Right? That's the issue. So for the getter good. So now, Meikara Alama. So why was he, why was he going to her in the first place? So, Kemakasha Chalal Damya. The answer is, it's like an internal injury. So so therefore he had no right to be able to go to her. He said any internal injury, he couldn't go to, I guess, the non-Jewish lady, right? So, Amar of Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman says, Shani Tzapdina hu maschil bepeh v'gomer bibnei ma'ayim. He says, yeah, but that's different because Tzapdina starts in the mouth and then it spreads and goes into the intestines.
Actually, it's a painful inflammation of the mouth's mucous membranes.
There you go. So there you are. So
that's what it is.
Right. So therefore, why was he? I guess the question is, why was he going to take this on Shabbos? Right. He's going to take it on Shabbos. The answer is because it was potentially dangerous, and therefore he was allowed to take it on Shabbos. We know why he was able to take it from the non-Jew because it was a medicine. As we said, we were allowed to be able to take medicines from the non-Jews anyway. My simone. So what was the medicine? So now that we want to know, right? Or what's the symptom of the disease? So Rami midi bekochi umaisi dama mi beidori. So he says that what happens is anytime you touch your gums, so blood comes out from the rows of teeth, right? Some kind of, it indicates that you have some kind of infection there. Mm-hmm. Now, mimai, so then mimai have, so what causes it? Makriri kariri dechiti, or mecham mechamimi disiri. If you eat cold wheat products, or you eat hot barley products, right?
Cholent, for example.
Yes, too hot a cholent potentially, right? That would be bad for you. Umishure casa de harsana, or you could, if you have fried fish, chopped up fish, fried fish that got left overnight. So my avdale, right? The herring. If the herring gets left out, don't eat that.
That's dangerous.
Don't eat that.
Oh.
My avdilai. So what did she do? What was the medicine? Some Ravacha braid the Rava. So Ravacha, the son of Rava, says, "Mi me seor v'shemen zayis umelach." Right? You get some yeast water.
What is yeast water, anyways?
You take some water and add some yeast. Right? Some leavening agent there. And then some oil, some olive oil, and some salt. And you gargle, I guess. I don't know what to say.
Salt is definitely appropriate.
By the way, right? This is why as principle, I can tell you there are certain remedies for kids that I swear by. Ice takes care of just about everything, right? Wet paper towel cures almost all headaches. Salt water for every toothache.
Yeah.
Right? Tell the kids to gargle with this. They're like, oh, amazing, Rabbi, you're a
We just
genius.
learned Shavuos, and you said you swear by it. Actually, we learned Shavuos.
There you go. Say it. Umar bar Rav Ashi Amar. Now, Mar bar Rav Ashi says that what she gave him was mashcha de avza begadfa de avza. She gave him goose fat with a goose feather. Right? That was what it was. Amar Abaye. So Abaye says, Ana avdi kuluhu velo istoy. I tried all of these remedies. Didn't help me. Ad Amar liyahutaya. But you know what did work? A certain Arab fellow came along. I see kashyaisa dezesa de lo mol tilsa. I got some pits of some dates that were not a third of the way ripe. Vekalnahu, and we amra chadasa, and we put them. Let's say it was on the top. We burned them on the top of a new hoe. Okay, a new hoe. Has to be new. I guess you know what. But if they were worried about germs and things, that could make some sense, right? You don't want to use a used one. V'davik bay didari. So and then you put that onto the row of teeth that are affected of dihachi ve'istoi, and I did that, and I did get healed. So that was very useful. Rabbi Yochanan, now, how did Rabbi Yochanan do this? The Rabbi Baruch says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol makash mechal l'nasa Shabbos. If you're able to be mechal Shabbos, ein misrabin by him, she shouldn't have been able to go to the non-Jew and get the cure. So the answer is, Adam Choshev Shani, he was an important fellow. So non-Jews were not going to kill him because they were fearing retribution if they did. So he was different. But what about the story of Rabbi Avo? Rabbi Avo was also an important person. Verama le Yaakov Mina Sama. So, and Yaakov the Min, not the same Yaakov we had before, a different Yaakov the Min. So he was, because he didn't live during Rabbi Shmuel's time, different one. So he gave him a potion, Ashke ve'ilo, that he had some kind of affliction on his leg, and he put it on. He put minasama ashake. He put it on his leg, and lo Rami Rabbi Ami Rabbi Asi dilakhu lishake. If Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi had not licked the medicine off of him, paske lishake, he would have lost his leg. So he clearly gave him a bad batch. And so that was they couldn't touch it, they had to lick it off. The Rabbi Yochanan, Rofe Mumchahava. Rabbi Yochanan's situation was that she was a well-known doctor with a high reputation. So the Rabbi Yavo, Nami Rofe Mumchahava. But Rabbi Yavo also went to an expert doctor and he tried to kill him. So Shani, or at least have him lose his leg. Shani Rabbi Yavo was a different story. De mokmi be mini binafshaihu tamos nafshi im plishtim. They were so angry, they hated Rabbi Yavo so much, the minim, because he would always answer them up, that they would have killed themselves in order to kill him, right? Like the case of the plishtim with Shimshon. So they were willing, the doctor was willing to sacrifice himself and his reputation to get to Rabbi Yavo. It's a self-suicide attempt, right? So he was ready to attack him, so therefore that's why it was different. Amar Shmuel says, Hi pedasa sakantahi. He says that when it comes to this pedasa, which is a wound that's caused by a sword, right? A sword slash, that is dangerous. You can get infected by metal, right? Umechal nasa Shabbos, you mechal Shabbos for it. My asusa. So what's the cure? So first of all, lemifsik dama, in order to stop the blood, tachli bechala. So the first thing that you've got to do is that you've got to take some cress in vinegar. I'm not sure cress is a vegetable of some kind of thing, right? Tachli bechala, you get some cress in vinegar. Lasuke garda, and then in order to lasuke, in order to heal it, garda de yavla, vigirda de asna. So what you need scraplings of yivla and the scrapings of yivla and the scrapings of thorn bushes.
It's a variety of leafy green plants, typically harvested while young.
Oh, there you go. So that's what they would put on it. Some herbs and, like matching like the
Herbal remedies.
Yeah, some First Nations remedy or something, right? Oh, Nikra milkilkalta, and if you can, or you can get the peckings from a trash heap, right? This is when the chickens go out the trash heap, they try to find worms or whatever. Get some of those, put that on there. That's good to get rid of, right? Rub some dirt on it. Amarav Safra, so Rav Safra says, Hi invasa parvanka. So let's say you've got this inbisa, which is a type of a grape-sized boil on you. So parvanka de malaba. De malacha de mosahi. That is the messenger of the Malachamavis. That's the angel of death. You're in a lot of trouble if you've got that. My asusos. How do you heal that? Tigna beduvsha. You need to take some tigna grass, and you put it in some honey. Oh, karpisa, or some celery. Betilya, in tilya grass, right? In tilya, celery. Sorry, in strong wine. That's you translate it. Dehachi vahachi. Lacy anafta. Well, you're trying to get your ingredients together. Now,
Is the Rabbi here for a minor tonight?
I can be if needed, but otherwise I don't need to
Might
daven.
have a grab a taxi. Are you staying married?
Yeah.
Okay, we have him.
Great.
So you take while you're waiting for this, you get your grape. You get a real grape, bas mina, that is the same size as the boil, right? The nigdar ilove, and you rub it on the boil. Chivarti lechivarti, you get a white grape for the white boils, and ve'okamti le'okamti, you get a dark grape for the dark boils. Amarava, Rava says, hi simta, if you've got a simta, which is an abscess, right? There's a blister that's filled with pus. So parvanka de eshtahi, this is the messenger of fever, right? This is a bad infection. So maya susa, how do you heal that? Lemichya shisin, so what you need to do is lemichye shisin iskutle. What you do is you snap your fingers 60 times, scraping the top of the blister, so that at least loosens the skin, right? Vilikare shasi va'arev. Then you can cut it open. You need to cut it open lengthwise, widthwise, in order to release it, right? Open it up.
If you're doing this, it can be still infested. You can still.
Well, that's just to loosen it up, I guess, right? Vahani mili. I'm not telling you to do this. This is go to a doctor. I'm just saying the Gemara, just trying to read and translate. Vahani mili dilo chiver reishay. That's as long as the head of it is not white. If its white head is white, lace lon ba, then you don't got to do anything. It's going to open up on its own. You're fine, right? Rabbi Yaakov chash bepikah. So he had some kind of hemorrhoids of some kind or something, right? So Ori le Rabbi Ami, Vamri la Rabbi Asi. So he did as Rabbi Ami said to do, and some say it was Rabbi Asi that he said. Laite shav bine ahala tolana. What you need to do is take 7 seeds of aloe, right? Makes sense. We use aloe nowadays to be able to heal skin and pains. And what you do is red aloe, tolana. It's red aloe. V'tzayir le bechalala and tzavara. And then you need to cut them up and you put them in a cloth of the neck of a garment. So if you imagine tzitzis, right, you've got a hole in the top. So you take a big square cloth and they would cut out the neck hole so you can put your head. Now you've got a little round cloth, which is very useful for putting things in, seating them up, and then tying them up, right? So then what you do is v'tamish le benatfa chivara. Dip it into white nafta, which is a type of flammable material, right? And then and then velikle, and then you burn that up. Ubadar le ilave, and then you spread the ashes on the infected area. Adahachi v'hachi, while you're waiting for those ingredients, right? While you're waiting for that, laiti kashiasa de asna. So what you should do is get seeds of the fruit of thorn bushes. And linach pikah, lahade pikah. And then you should place the opening of the fruit to the opening of where the swords are, and that is how you'll soothe while you're waiting for your real remedy. Vahani mili pikah ilah pikah tata mai. So he says, now this is when we're talking about where the infection is on the outer part. right? But what if the infection is internal? So Lacey Tarba ditzapirta delo aftach. So what you need to do then is you need to bring the fats of a goat that have never given birth, obviously. Velivshar, I told you I have to be able to read, get the English here. Velivshar velishti bay, and then velivshar, you melt that, and then you smear that on the affected area. Ve'ilo, if you don't have that remedy available, right? Lacey plus tarfa. So then what you have to do is you need to bring 3 leaves, kara de miyabshi betula, 3 leaves of a gourd plant that's been dried in the shade. Velikle, and then you burn that. Velibadar ilave, and then spread that on the affected area. Ve'ilo, but if you don't have any of those gourd plants, don't worry, you've got another idea. Laisi mishkidei chalzonoi. What you have to do is you've got to bring the shells of some snails. Ve'ilo, and if not, maisi mashach kira, then you should bring wax oil. So wax oil is mashach kira, right? Wax oil. Velinkot b'shachake dekitna bekaita, and wrap it in the rags of flax in the summertime, because that helps cool you down in the summertime. And ude'amar gufna besitva, and then you're going to wrap it in cotton during the wintertime, and then you put that on the affected area. Rabbi Yavo chash be'udnei. So Rabbi Yavo, he had a pain in his ear. So orule Rabbi Yochanan, the Amri Law Bay Midrash. Some he either went to Rabbi Yochanan for advice on how to take care of his earache. Some said he went to the base Medrash, and they gave him a lot of good advice. As if you go to the base Medrash, you tell them you got an earache, everybody's got a remedy. My orule. So what did they tell him to do? Ki hadam Rabbi. They told him like what Rabbi says. Amra li aim. My mother said. No, it wasn't an interesting Rabbi. It wasn't Abayi's mother. Abayi's mother died in childbirth, but he was raised by somebody else who took care of him. He was always
like his stepmother. His
stepmother, right? He always called this person his mother and gave her great respect. So he says, this is what she told me. Lo ibri kul laisa ella leudno. You know what kidneys are good for? Everybody knows kidneys are good for earaches, right? The Amar Rava says, Amar li Manyumi, that Manyumi told me that asya kuluhu shakainhu kashu leudna. He says that all fluids, don't get any fluid in your ear. Fluids in your ear are bad for you. As we know, if you get swimmer's ear, that's not good for you. Labar mimaya dekulaisa, except for kidney water, right? Water that is from boiled kidneys, the liquid that comes out of kidneys, that's good for your infections.
Where can you find those nowadays?
Inside of animals. Kidneys are everywhere. So what do is, Laisi kuliyasa debarcha karcha, get yourself a hairless goat, kidney of a hairless goat, which I think is a regular goat. I just think that they are, compared to sheep, that they have less hair. V'likar e shasi va'orev, and you cut the kidney open, length and widthwise. V'linach amalula denura, and then what you do is you place it upon some glowing coals. V'anu maya denafki minei, and the water, the liquid that comes out of it, lishadinhu ba'udnei, put that in your ear. Velo kariri velo chamimi, and you don't make it too cold or too hot, right? Ela pshure, you need it to be in between, just right. Ve'ilo laisi, and if you don't have that, laisi tarba bechi pushta gam lanisa. Then you need to get the fat of a large scarab, which I think is a type of beetle, right?
What's it called?
A scarab, right? There's like beetles they have in Egypt, right? Velivshar velishti bay, and you melt that fat. And then you put that in your ear. Ve'ilo, if you don't have that, l'mayela udnei mishcha. So then you got to fill your ear with oil.
Yeah, it is a type of beetle.
There you go. Fill your ear with oil, right? V'levid shav pesilta de aspasta. And then you get 7 wicks. You need 7 wicks made of aspasta, which is an animal fodder. He says wheat stalks, but it's like a quick growing kind of a weed that grows by the ground that animals would eat. But let's say shufta de tuma. And then you need to get some dried garlic leaves. Okay, if you're taking notes. The lace of barka bechad reisha, and you tie animal hair on one end you tie the garlic leaves to one end of each wick that you've got from the aspasta, from this wheat, right? The lace levahu nura, and you light it on fire, right? Ve'idach reishi mosva be'udna, and then you put the other end in your ear, right? So you got a little candle going on there. Maybe to melt the earwax. It makes some sense, right? There's some logic here, right? Melt your earwax.
Practice something similar to this today.
Really?
It's called ear candling. Yeah.
Oh, okay, ear candling. There you go. We'll Google it.
Where you light the candle, put the candle near and you light
There you
it.
go.
Exactly.
The lace of udnei lahada nura, and then, right, while the other end of each wing is placed in the ear. V'leisev, right? And he should place his ear near the fire. However, v'yizdar mizika, you got to be worried about some winds, right? It gets a little bit of wind, you can catch your ear on fire. Don't worry about, do that. V'nishko chada v'nona chada. And then he should take one wick out as it gets used up and put the next one in. Lishna achrina, there's another version of what to do, right? That says, v'ilo, if you can't use any of the earlier cures, so then, lighty shave basilta bikra, so then you take 7 wicks. This, according to this version, the wicks are of animal hair. V'shayafle mishchadas pasta, and smear it with balsam oil. The aspasta here is what the oil is made from, not what the wick is made from. V'naisi chad reisha benura, and you put one end on fire, right? V'chad reisha budne, put the other end in your ear. V'nishko chada v'nanach chada, and as one burns out, you then replace it with the next one. V'yizdar mizika, and be careful of some wind. V'ilo, if you can't do that, laisi udra denada, so then you get some violet wool, right? It's been dyed, but delo mashkif, it has not been combed out yet. V'nanach be, and you put that, right? You put that in your ear. V'lislei le'udne adinura, and then you put your ear near the fire, right? And you have to be careful, Mizdar Mizika, don't get too close to the draft, because then it'll catch on fire, and that's not healthy. Vilo, laisi, if you can't do that, laisi guvsa dekanya atika, then you need to get yourself a reed tube that's old, ben bar mea shnin, that's 100 years old, right? It's been cut, dried out for 100 years. V'limalche milcha galanisa, and then what you need to do is you fill it with rock salt. And get yourself the snow salt from the garage. Do that. Velikle, and you light that on fire. Velidbak, and then you apply that to your ear.
That's when you leave seam in your ear, the white snow,
Now,
salt of the snow.
The simonech, the way that you can know which of these remedies to use is retiva liyabeshta. You use the wet remedies if your ear is dry. Liyabeshta liretiva, and you use the dry remedies for wet, right? If you get too much. Amar Rabbi Bar Zutra. Rabbi Bar Zutra says. Amar Rabbi Chanina, and then Rabbi Chanina. Malan aznaim b'Shabbos. We're allowed to, if you have a dislocated ear or whatever, so you can put it back in place on Shabbos, right? You can raise his ear to its proper position, right? He says that you can wind up with some kind of ear injury on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Tani, we learned Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda says biyad, you can only do that with a hand. Aval lo besam, not with a medicine. Right, medicine is because we don't want to violate the rabbinic prohibition. You do it by hand, so then that's not going to violate that prohibition. Ekadamri, they say besam, you could use medicine. Avalo biyad, you can use the medicine, but not by hand. Right, my time. What's the reason for that? Mizrif zorif. The answer is because if you move it around manually, you may cause another wound. That's a d'oraisa problem, right? Keep causing a wound on Shabbos. Amar, do we have everybody? Let's stop here.
Okay.
We'll stop here, Rav Zutra.
Zara,
We got sidetracked because we said don't go to a non-Jewish doctor,
Right.
and then we said, well, which doctors you can't go to is if you've got a infection or you've got some kind